So I give you Enrico, a doctor, a PhD holder in policy and a little bit of ICT, a Tai Chi teacher and instructor, a good friend, and one of the best improvisers I've seen in my classes and tables. No fish this year, Enrico. Go on.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the kind introduction, and I will follow your orders and I will improvise as usual. I hope you can all hear me fine and you can see my slides. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity.
Maybe you speak a little bit closer to the mic or a little bit louder.
Okay, I will try to speak little bit louder, okay? So thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here again after so many editions of the Samos Summit, to see it evolve in a very interesting event. My name is Enrico Ferro. I work at the Links Foundation. That is a private no-profit research center that was founded by the Politecnico of Torino and the Compagnia di San Paolo, a bank foundation. And at the Links Foundation, I'm in charge of a multidisciplinary group of innovation researchers. And we launched an initiative that is called Over the Block, that is an observatory on blockchain innovation that focuses on new business model enabled by blockchain, community empowerment, always enabled by blockchain, and the convergence between exponential technologies such as blockchain and AI. The work that I'm going to present today is just some preliminary results from an effort that I undertook together with my colleague Alfredo Favenza, that is working with me on blockchain, and our colleague and friend Laura Ricci, that is a professor of informatics at the University of Pisa. And as you can see from the title, it's a work that tries to look at what blockchain can do in the governance of COVID-like pandemics. So, as you probably all know and experienced over the last few years, COVID was a swan-like black swan-like event that got most of the world unprepared. Only very few people could foresee this type of pandemics. There's a TED talk from Bill Gates saying, we are unprepared for pandemics, but sometimes when you have these people that can really see into the future, most of the time they are not listened by the majority of the population. And since we were unprepared, this event had really a systemic impact on our lives. From the healthcare system that, of course, were highly put under pressure to manage all this, the spike of people needing medical attention, and in some countries also the privatization of the healthcare system really showed this weak side to our social system. COVID really hit us on one of our core aspects as human beings, that is the fact that we are social animals, and it really leverages our need and the fact that we like to interact socially to really spread around, and all the way to of course the economic system that is highly relying on the fact that we move from one place to another, and then we do social activities together, and then of course it took the stage in our infosphere. For a few months, most of the headlines, most of the papers, most of the news were mainly about COVID and what to do about COVID, what not to do, and of course it was again an opportunity to spread some fake news. We know that we have this problem not only related to COVID, of course, in the infosphere, but COVID was an even a new opportunity for this type of practices. So what we did as in my group, we said, okay, many researchers around the world starting saying, okay, what can we do to help? And of course, we are not medical researchers, so we could not help with vaccines or doing field trials and whatever. So we said, okay, let's try to see whether the technologies that we are studying can provide any support in order to mitigate the impacts of this type of phenomena. So we basically asked ourselves 3 questions. The first one was, okay, what type of problems, for what type of problems can blockchain be leveraged in order to reduce the impact of COVID-like pandemics? Then what type of value is this technology offering to solve these problems? And finally, in which phase of the management of emergency can this be best applied? Is there a phase in the management of the emergency in which blockchain can be best applied? And with these 3 questions in mind, we designed an exploratory study in which we mostly looked at, of course, at blockchain and the emergency management literature, and of course also at the news, because it was fast evolving phenomenon. And we identified a long list of 3 applications of blockchain in the management of COVID. And we selected, out of these 30 applications, we selected 19, also to mimic the name of COVID-19. No, this is just a joke, but they ended up being 19, and and basically we filtered them according to the areas of impact, that the 4 areas of impact that I mentioned earlier, and we cut out the application that were merely announcements, so they didn't have at least a proof of concept. And then we analyzed them according to 4 dimensions. There are the type of blockchain used, the type of maturity level, the value generated, and the emergency phase in which they were applied. So,
sorry, I'm getting a request to be a little louder, or more louder, I might say.
Even louder, okay.
Even
okay.
louder, even louder.
If I can, okay. I'll try to hold my abacus, okay, my laptop, okay. So these are the 4 areas of impact that I showed you earlier, and these are the 19 projects that we mapped and we analyzed. As you can see, obviously, most of the projects are focusing on the healthcare system and the social system, mostly tracing and helping with some charity aspects, because of course these are the most urgent issues and problems that we were facing when COVID, during the COVID outburst. And then of course there were some secondary impact, of course, on the economic system, and then of course the information aspect is also important, but still, the first 2 aspects were merely, the first one was to prevent deaths, and the second one was to prevent new contagion. So we also look at what type of problems people were experiencing during COVID. So we did a little bit of a literature review on this, and we found mostly 8 type of problems. One, of course, with the disruption of supply chains, because we are now always relying on global supply chains, but when you start closing borders and stopping people and things to move around, of course this disrupts the supply chain flow, and of course on top of this you have panic buying from people that think they are not going to be able to secure the necessary things that they will need. So this is one of the key issues that we had to face. Then of course there were some data sharing issues, because of course the pandemic impacted all the local communities and the entire global community at the same time. It was very important to have an overall picture to really be able to share data at local level in order to get an overall picture, at least at national level, if not at international level. And then, of course, when we started going through the lockdown, there was some suspicion, we stopped some basic fundamental rights, so the suspension of some rights such as the possibility to exit your house, the need to be far away from each other, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, also education here in Italy, but I would say all over the world, because the education system was not prepared, especially in the primary schools and where kids are smaller. All the teachers were not used to use Zoom-like video conferencing solutions, and that has a big impact on the possibility for students to really attend their lectures. Also, not all the students had the technology at home, or had the parents that had the time to look after them when they needed to attend the lessons via a video conference. And then, of course, lots of people lost their jobs, so it was important to also sustain people in a period in which they did not receive any salary or any money through some sort of philanthropy and charity. And then, for what concerns the spread of the virus, of course, cashless payment systems were something that were very useful in order to avoid the contact, in indirect contact through the manipulation of cash. And from what concerns the corporate point of view, the access to credit, of course, was something important, because as you know, people did not receive salaries. Of course, companies stopped selling products and services, and that also created some sort of liquidity issues for companies. And then, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, information that was spreading around were not grounded into actual research, or something. There were pure fake news. It was important to have a healthy and reliable information diet in order to actually manage the process. So what we did, we tried to map the projects on these 8 problems that we identified through the literature review, and then we tried to map everything together. So on the one hand, we have the area of impact, the 4 areas of impact. On the other side, you have the types of problems, and you have the maturity level of the product that we identified. As we can see, although blockchain is still a pretty emergent technology, so it's not as mature maybe as AI is, we still found some a reasonable amount of instances in which there was already a product that could be used in the field, and not just a proof of concept or an MVP to prove the usefulness of the technology in the management of the crisis. And then we looked into what type of value these solutions could provide. And then, of course, there was some value having to do with transparency, an easier sharing of data among different institutions, the possibility, for example, to guarantee privacy and anonymity, although sharing your some personal data through zero knowledge proof solutions, the possibility to reduce the frauds and increase trust in the management of sales processes among companies. And overall, there was a most trusted and accountable possibility to enjoy news. For example, there's a project by New York Times that used blockchain to trace the evolution of news in order to be able to be sure that all the news that you were reading about COVID were actually certified and trusted. That, you know, phase of the management of emergency where use this type of solutions, and we couldn't find a specific phase, also because most of the project could be applied to different phases of the management of emergencies process. We can say that maybe the response phase is the one in which you know, most projects were applied, but also there were projects that were used also in other phases of this process, so that there is not a specific phase that can be said is the most appropriate for the use of this type of technology. Finally, we looked at you know, just an overview. We said look at whether what type of blockchain was used, whether it was private or public, or there was some sort of a hybrid approach in which part of the solution was private and part of the solution was hosted on a public blockchain. But we were surprised to see that you know, a good amount of public blockchains were used, and this is it's very interesting to see, you know, that whenever you want to do something that needs to be accessed by a large number of users, a large number of institutions from different countries, it's important to create some sort of a common infrastructure for sharing all this type of information. And then, of course, the type of value that was generated has to do with accountability, with sharing, with certification, with transparency, and anonymity and collaboration. So just to briefly recap, we can say after this first exploratory study that we have some preliminary results in terms of, and we can say that, you know, the blockchain ecosystem has revealed to be active and reactive and vibrant in terms of trying to provide a response to this type of problem, that the technology has been applied to address a wide range of problems, mostly requires some sort of coordination among actors. And we believe it represents an enabler for sharing a collaboration activities. And for what concerns the phases on the emergency management process, it has been fruitfully applied along most of the emergency management process. Finally, one concluding thought is that, you know, if COVID brought us together as a single population worldwide, I think that, you know, blockchain can help us bring us together in the creation and the management of some sort of a new breed of global commons. There is an infrastructure that allows us to share, trust each other, collaborate, and manage issues that are much bigger than the single nations, much bigger than the single organizations. And I think they are very much needed as a source, as a type of solutions in order to bring, you know, the entire world community, from the researchers, from the policymakers, to the professionals, to the enterprises, in order to manage this new type of challenges that we are going to face more and more in the coming years, and from which nobody can really feel excluded. Okay, this is more or less it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I'm sorry about the volume, but you know, usually it all works fine, so I'm not sure what happened with the microphone.
I'll make sure that your gift after 10 years in Samo Summit will be a set of headphones with a microphone. Okay, anyway, we managed. There were some issues also with the connection at a certain point, but it went and went away, so I didn't want it to interfere. Okay, this is your time for questions. We will not stay more than 5 minutes more. Students and participants, I will make one question, but then if no one makes a question, all the students will have a problem. So, Enrico, I follow the issues of blockchain, not as close as you, of course, but I sensed during these first years of this attempt, there have been ups and downs already, meaning there is some pressure from the established organizations, maybe mainly at the financial sector, but also I see pushover sometimes in the in the public sector as a whole as well. So my question is this COVID/blockchain or blockchain for COVID situation, do you think that will help blockchain to unleash some of its powers or break some doors, open some doors in the future, as we see COVID doing certain things in this direction with other issues like collaboration tools, etc. So is there going to be a blockchain after COVID era? And how this would look like?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I think, of course, blockchain has a very wide-ranging impact, from financial services to new governance models in terms of companies, and to to really creating this type of trust layer that enables collaborative and sharing behaviors. So I believe that as really, I think my closing statement was more or less the answer. So I believe as we understand that alone we are not enough, and that the problems that we face, that one of us faces is the problem that everyone has, and we cannot really say, okay, this is not my problem and they will face with it. We all need to come together, and for this is a huge coordination effort, and for coordination and collaboration we need two things. We need trust and we need alignment of incentives. And I think what blockchain provides is as I said, a trust layer for sharing and collaboration, and then you can use tokens as means of encapsulating value as a way to align incentives. And this you can already see in the governance of companies, for example, that is a much simpler problem than, of course, solving COVID-like scenarios. But for example, even if you look at the climate crisis, most of the problems that we are facing today is that each of us is not really paying for the problems that is creating. With the possibility to make some sort of a fine-grained accounting system through tokens and blockchain, you can get people to pay all the all the behaviors that are generating negative externalities on the planet and on humanity. And that, of course, aligns the incentives of people not to keep using those type of behaviors. So I believe that the two values that blockchain can offer in terms of COVID-like scenarios are really enabling collaboration and coordination and aligning incentives of people in order really to come together as a global population toward the solution of one problem. And I don't see any other technology to be able to really do that in this way. I can see, for example, a lot of convergence between blockchain and AI together for solving problems in many areas. And I think at the end they will reinforce each other. But as long as we cannot have some sort of distributed trust, collaboration, sharing, and some sort of aligned incentives, I think we will always end up in problems that are the result of basically egoistic behaviors, as we can see, for example, in the climate crisis, which we have generational problem between people saying it's not my problem, I'm going to be dead by the time we have the problem, and people saying, hey, why are you leaving us children managing the climate crisis while you are the adults right now?
Okay, the next question will be a sum of more than 5, I think, questions and statements. There is a discussion already going on in the chat. You might follow, if you want, in written after the end of your presentation and talk here. I would summarize as I get many questions about, first, the security aspects, secondly, the interoperability aspects, maybe third also this aggressive nature of blockchain applications to take the place of others. So there is some skepticism, I understand, from the audience. And if you could give us a brief oversight of what is happening in these areas, because blockchain gets criticism from several, as any other disruptive technology, I think. The same happens with AI, or sort of the same. Can you give us your view of these weak points, or are there still weak points? Has something been done in the last months or years for security, interoperability, storage, where is this stored and how, etc.? And also the small aspect of this nature of blockchain to take completely the place of other applications, because it does not allow for too much interoperability. If you make a new information system, it can coexist. But if you make a blockchain app, then you need to take out your existing system.
Yes, yes. Of course, the space is growing and evolving very quickly. In terms of interoperability, as we witnessed with internet, at the beginning we had intranets that didn't talk to each other, then we had extranets, then we have the internet. Now everybody uses cloud, and nobody's really, even dreaming of having things that are separate to each other. The same is happening with blockchain. We had different blockchains. Now that they are already developing inter-blockchain communication. In terms of security, security is something that we all are concerned about when we want to jump into new paradigm. I remember when we were talking about e-commerce, and everybody said, how can I be 100% sure that when I put my credit card on the internet, nobody's going to steal it? And my answer usually to that is, even sure when you go to the restaurant and you give it to the waiter that it's not going to clone it. Why do you want the internet to give you 100% certainty? So of course we all need to work on security and privacy and everything, but I think we should be pragmatical enough not to expect a 100% result, because that is not possible. It doesn't exist in life, not even in all the practices that we do every day. And then for what concerns the fact that blockchain wants to take over, I'm not sure whether blockchain wants to take over. What I can see right now is that companies, of course, are not replacing their legacy system with blockchains yet. I think blockchain allows to raise the bar in terms of integrity and create some sort of layers of integrity on top of it. So I think in 10 years it will be a really bad practice not to use it, because all the, for example, the certification companies for balance sheet and so on and so forth will not certify your balance sheet if you have not used blockchain. I believe with respect to AI, for example, one of the problems with blockchains is that on the one hand, it's really foundational. It's not disruptive. I mean, AI can automate lots of processes, but it's not going to change the institutional structure of society. Blockchain is changing the institutional structure of society. Blockchain managed to to separate money from institutions, and that is something that has never happened in the history of humankind. So of course there is a lot of resistance from institutions, and I'm not saying that should be the way. All I'm saying is that right now we don't have a choice. We have our institutions that are doing their best at printing money to keep the economy afloat, but we can see already that the stock market, for example, is not really reflecting what is happening in the economy. So right now we can only go with that option. Now with blockchain we have an exit option that I'm not saying is going to replace the existing system, but I think it's going to make people vote with their money. So when things will go crazy enough in the institutional system, people will start saying, okay, it's not safe any longer to hold bonds. It's not safe any longer to keep my money in the stock market where it doesn't reflect any real economic activity. But I will move to another system. And this will probably tell the institutions and the markets to really go back to some sort of rationality. So I think things will evolve and coexist. And I think that the fact that blockchain is facing so much resistance, in certain areas is because it's really challenging the status quo at institutional level in terms of governance models, and so there are lots of interests that are at play right now. So that's why I think, but I think it's going to have an impact on society that is much bigger than all the other things that we've seen so far. We're just scratching the surface right now.